The night my wife, Claire, walked out of our home with nothing but a suitcase and her phone, I sat in the living room surrounded by silence. For years, I had been her anchor, steady, reliable, the man who built his world around her happiness. Yet that night, she traded our marriage for a man I had never met, someone who had promised her excitement I apparently could not provide. She didn't even try to hide her contempt. Her last words before shutting the door were, "You'll be fine without me, James. He's what I really want." Fine. That's what she thought. But as the days passed, the raw wound of betrayal turned into something else, clarity. If she wanted her affair partner, she could have him. But he would know the truth she never told him. That the woman he was glorifying as his soulmate was still legally my wife. At first, I wondered if confronting him was even worth it. Part of me wanted to erase them both, to disappear into my own solitude. But every time I replayed the smug smile on Claire's face as she left, I realized that this wasn't just about me. This was about truth. And sometimes the truth is the sharpest weapon you can use against people who thrive on lies. So I started piecing things together. Her texts, her late-night calls, the receipts she'd carelessly left behind. It didn't take long before I discovered his name, Michael Turner. A man with a polished career, a polished reputation, and apparently, a habit of coveting what wasn't his. One afternoon, I found myself standing outside his office building, watching as he exited with his perfect suit and perfect hair, looking like someone who had everything under control. He had no idea what storm was about to hit him, because the truth, once spoken, can unravel even the strongest illusion. I wasn't planning a scene. No shouting, no fists, no public confrontation. That's what they would expect. What I wanted was precision, the kind that cuts deeper than chaos. So I waited, rehearsing the words that would dismantle their fantasy in seconds. When Michael finally noticed me approaching, he looked confused, maybe even slightly defensive. Strangers don't usually walk up to him with steady eyes and calm voices. "Michael Turner?" I asked, my tone neutral. He nodded cautiously. "I'm James, Claire's husband." I watched the color drain from his face. For a moment, he looked as though he had misheard me, as though he wanted to believe I was joking. But the silence between us was undeniable. He stammered, "Husband? She told me, she said you two were separated." That word, separated, tasted like venom. Claire had used it before, testing it out in conversations with her friends, rewriting history as if I had somehow already ceased to exist in her life. But legally, emotionally, in every tangible way, she was still my wife. I let the weight of the truth sink in. No, we were not separated. She left me for you, Michael. Walked out of our home 2 weeks ago. And the ring is still on her finger. He blinked rapidly, his confidence crumbling. For a man who had likely built his identity on control, on knowing exactly where he stood, he suddenly looked lost. And I realized then, Claire had built her fantasy not just on escaping me, but on convincing Michael he was rescuing her from some broken marriage that didn't exist. He swallowed hard. I didn't know. She made it sound different. Of course she did. That was Claire's talent. Twisting the narrative until she became the victim, until the person she targeted became the savior. But there's only so long you can bend the truth before it snaps back. I leaned closer, not raising my voice, not threatening him, just delivering words with surgical precision. "Michael, you can have her if you want. I won't stop you. But don't ever forget, you're building your life with someone else's wife. The lies she told me, she'll tell you too. And when the shine wears off, you'll be the one holding the pieces." His hands tightened around his briefcase. He wanted to argue, to defend her, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't need to be shouted to be devastating. It only needs to be spoken once. I turned to walk away, leaving him standing there in silence, clutching the realization that the woman he thought he knew was nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion. The days that followed were eerily quiet. Claire didn't storm back into the house demanding explanations, nor did Michael show up trying to confront me again. Instead, the silence itself became the loudest consequence of all. I knew Claire well enough to imagine the confrontation between her and Michael, the questions he must have hurled at her, the half-truths she must have scrambled to stitch together. For a woman who lived by controlling every narrative, being caught in her own web must have felt like drowning. And me? I didn't chase her. I didn't beg for her to come home. Didn't demand answers she would only twist. For the first time in years, I felt strangely free. There's a power in knowing the truth, in refusing to let someone else's lies define your worth. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sun sink below the horizon, my phone buzzed. Claire's name lit up the screen. I let it ring out. Moments later, a message appeared. You didn't have to tell him. You ruined everything. I stared at those words, realizing just how deeply she still misunderstood me. I hadn't ruined anything. She had. I only peeled back the curtain and let the truth shine through. The more I thought about it, the more I understood. People like Claire thrive on secrecy. Their affairs, their manipulations, their half-truths, they all survive in the dark. But once exposed to light, they wither. And that was all I had done. Turned on the light. Weeks passed, and word spread through mutual friends. Some looked at me with pity, others with quiet respect. I didn't care either way. What mattered was that I no longer carried her lies on my shoulders. She had chosen her path, and now she had to walk it. As for Michael, I heard through whispers that their spark burned out quickly. Trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. He had tasted the truth, and no amount of her charm could cover that bitterness. And me? I began to rebuild, not with grand gestures or desperate rebounds, but with simple steps. Morning runs, reconnecting with old friends, finding myself again outside the shadow of betrayal. Claire once told me I was too quiet, too steady, too predictable. She craved chaos, drama, excitement. And in the end, that's exactly what she got, just not in the way she imagined. Because sometimes the loudest revenge isn't rage or violence. It's silence. It's walking away knowing the truth has already done all the damage for you.